inviting me, and I'm grateful to have the assistance of Lisa McCormick, because it's been all of 3 weeks that I've been the prosecutor here, and in those 3 weeks, I've learned a lot, and I released a report today after doing some due diligence on the office, so we can start to earn back the confidence of the people of Ingham County, and I'm eager toward that end. You know, the issue of medical marijuana is one that has confounded the state's leadership ever since the voters approved the policy in the 2008 election. As a voter, I supported the law. As a citizen, I was dismayed, though, that neither of the attorneys general since then have worked to promulgate some clear, logical framework and rules to ensure that patients are benefited and communities are protected. As a legislator, when I was in office, we were working to implement through legislation so that we would, I supported a framework that would have clarified the numerous gray areas that we are still trying to confront. Now, as prosecutor, I'm hoping that our community can build a regulatory system so that the 2008 law can really work for patients and caregivers. Also, at the state level, I'm hopeful now that the House will finally pass a dispensary bill that continues to await action in the Senate Judicial Committee. With legislation at the state level, we could finally end the constant lawsuits and court cases that have been circulating throughout our system during the many years since the act was originally passed 8 years ago. Ideally, we would operate with one set of rules and standards that should govern across the state of Michigan. However, we have yet to see that, and that's part of the issue that vexes communities like ours. My role here, though, today is not as a legislator, and not as a citizen, and not as, you know, in any of those other capacities. It's as the Ingham County prosecutor. And so I think it's really important to clarify what the role of the prosecutor's office is. Obviously, we are in the midst of an election where we will elect the next prosecutor, who will take on a full 4-year term and will be sworn in after the first of the year. Throughout debates between candidates who are running for prosecutor, it became very clear that the role of the prosecutor's office not only maybe is perhaps not completely understood, but that maybe even some of the candidates had made comments that were further created confusion. So that's why I thought it was so important to come here and explain what our role is as prosecutor. It's not to develop the policy. It is not to do the investigations. It is to determine whether, after an investigation is done by a police department, whether or not there is sufficient evidence to bring charges, and then what charges are make sense, are supported by the evidence, and then to go forward with prosecuting. At one point, one of the candidates in a forum, a candidate who actually works for the city of Lansing, made a comment that it is the policy of the prosecutor's office not to ever prosecute charges violating state law, and that is absolutely inaccurate, and that's what I wanted to come and clarify. If an investigation yields information that is then brought to the prosecutor's office, we do go forward and prosecute. And in fact, we have a couple of cases out of Leslie that we are actively prosecuting right now. That's the role of the prosecutor. It's not to come in and tell you what we think the law should be. It's not to go out and do the investigation. But once those things happen, then it is on us to bring the charges and ensure that the judicial system works and that the laws are enforced. And so with that, that's really the sum total of the presentation that we have. But I did bring Lisa with me because she's been in the office of the prosecutor for many years, and if there are other questions with regard to what our policies or how we have operated are, I certainly would love to have her assistance in answering your questions.
If she'd like to weigh in at this time.
Well, I think that from the standpoint of the prosecutor's office, we have always, whatever comes in from any law enforcement agency is how we review cases. We don't have any investigators at the prosecutor's office. We don't tell law enforcement how to investigate. What happens in a daily day at the prosecutor's office is that if someone is arrested or they're investigating a complaint and they feel that they have finished their investigation, they will bring us a warrant request, requesting charges that they believe are appropriate. We review the police report and we determine what charges would be appropriate, if any. And there's many things that go into that decision. Certainly, we look at the facts of the case, whether there's any search and seizure issues, a number of issues. And then at that point, we follow the law. I think the only interesting issue, I mean, for an attorney, when you start talking about constitutional issues, we believe those are interesting, not maybe for everyone, but the transporting of marijuana right now is an interesting constitutional issue that's being litigated across the state. There's a statute that says you cannot transport marijuana, and then there's also the Medical Marijuana Act, and so you have to read both together. The courts have been split across. Sir?
You can't transport medical marijuana, it's a safe lock area.
Sir, yeah.
That's fine. All I'm saying is that there's a statute in place and then there is the act in place. And that is the only situation where we have told law enforcement to not bring cases to us for violation of the statute for transporting marijuana, because it is split across the state. And we have decided that because I would say, in fact, I brought the numbers with me, there are 6 district courts and 3 circuit courts that have ruled that the statute is valid and enforceable, but there are 6 district courts and 2 circuit courts that have ruled it invalid and unconstitutional. And so when these things happen at the prosecutor's office, we're always watching the case law that is going on. And when we saw this split of decisions, we decided that we're going to be in fairness to everyone, because clearly the public is not clear between the statute and the Medical Marijuana Act. We decided that we would not allow law enforcement to bring those charges to us at this time. Now, it is pending in the Court of Appeals. And so, once the Court of Appeals gives us some guidance on that issue, then we will follow the decision of the Court of Appeals. So that is just the one situation that has come up of many. So I hope that answers some questions for you.
Lisa, I know one of the comments that we've heard repeatedly from the public is back when we passed our ordinance in 2011, there was the McQueen decision that came down, and the city attorney at that time sent a letter to the dispensary owners that were open, indicating that based on that decision, dispensaries were illegal, that he advised them to close down, that we would not issue licenses. So the public has asked us over and over again, then why are they open? If it's been determined that they're illegal, then why are they continuously still out there?
Well, my response to that is that we don't investigate dispensaries. We can only, we take whatever we receive from the law enforcement agency. And so, for example, like Prosecutor Whitmer has indicated, the Leslie Police Department investigated a dispensary and did an investigation and brought it to us, and that case is pending in front of Judge Jamo right now. So we do not go out and investigate and look for violations of the criminal code. We rely on law enforcement to do those investigations and bring up charges for any potential act, whether it's for a violation of the medical marijuana laws or any other type of crime.
Yes, Councilmember
So since
Hussain.
2011, to your knowledge, has there been anything brought forward by the Lansing Police Department in terms of dispensaries and investigations?
Not that I am aware of.
Okay, you answered. You asked my question. Was there anything from Councilmember Spitzley? You know, I appreciate you coming in and answering those questions. I don't know if you have anything else you want to add to the discussion at this time. Turn it back over to you for a moment.
I guess I would just make one additional comment. I appreciate Councilman Hussein's question because I think that maybe helps clarify a little bit. You know, I did a ride-along with the Lansing Police Department a couple weeks ago, and as someone who's lived in this community my whole life, I would encourage people to think about availing yourself of that. It's open to anyone in the public, and it was just really an educational thing for me. I'll tell you, I saw some things that I was very surprised to see. So I understand a lot of the stressors that are put onto the police department. That being said, it is an investigation by a police agency that then kicks us into action on the prosecutor's office. And so that happens before we get involved. I guess that's why I appreciate the question that you asked. I think sometimes because we're all under the umbrella of law enforcement that it's unclear who takes up in what part of an action. And so if there are further questions beyond that from the general public or anyone, we are easy to find and happy to do our best to get you the answers that you need as they arise. So I encourage you to avail yourselves of that as well as maybe doing one of those ride-alongs. It certainly was an educational thing for me.
And we want to thank you for attending, and you're more than welcome to stay, but I realize you have a very busy schedule, and so if you do need to leave, again, if you go to the ingham.org website, you can find the prosecutor's office, their email address, their phone numbers to be able to contact the prosecutor and their office over any concerns that you have. She's been very forthright in trying to address those as soon as possible, so we thank you for that.
Thank you very much.